The sound of the lock turning behind me was so quiet that, for a moment, I convinced myself I had imagined it. I stood in the darkness of my neighbor's basement, my hand still resting on the old metal fuse box, waiting for her to laugh and say it was some strange joke. But she didn't. The door above the stairs remained closed, and the only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator upstairs and the heavy rain hitting the windows like someone desperately trying to get inside. That I had walked into that house believing I was helping someone. I thought I was doing a simple favor for a neighbor who needed a little kindness. I never expected that one small request to uncover years of pain, hidden secrets, and a broken heart that had been silently crying for help. Before we continue this emotional journey, if you believe that kindness can change lives, that second chances matter, and that sometimes helping a stranger can become the most important thing you ever do, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in compassion, leave a comment, and subscribe to Dream Discipline. Your support helps us bring more heartfelt stories like this to life. My name is Callum Reeves, and at that time in my life, I had become someone who preferred keeping to himself. A few years earlier, I had lost my wife, Marissa, after a long battle with illness. Losing her changed everything about me. The house that once felt warm and alive became nothing more than four walls filled with memories I wasn't ready to face. That I stopped inviting people over. I stopped making plans. I stopped believing that life could surprise me with anything good again. Every morning, I followed the same routine. I woke up before sunrise, made a cup of coffee, went to my small accounting job, returned home, and spent my evenings sitting on the porch watching the world move around me. I wasn't unhappy exactly. I was just existing. Then she moved in next door. Her name was Seraphina, a woman in her early 60s with silver hair, gentle eyes, and a smile that always looked like it was hiding 1,000 untold stories. She bought the old house next to mine, a place that had been empty for almost 2 years after the previous owner passed away. Most people in the neighborhood didn't know much about her. They whispered that she had moved from another city after some family problems. Some said she was lonely. Others said she was mysterious. That I never paid much attention to rumors. The first time I properly met her was when she was struggling to carry a large box from her car to her front door. Without thinking, I walked over and helped her. She thanked me with a warmth I hadn't felt from anyone in a long time. Over the next few months, we became friendly neighbors. Not close friends exactly, but the kind of people who waved across the yard, exchanged a few words over the fence, and occasionally shared a meal. Seraphina always seemed grateful for small things. If I fixed her broken garden gate, she thanked me as if I had built her a mansion. If I brought her extra vegetables from my garden, she smiled like I had given her something priceless. But there was something about her that I couldn't understand. Behind her kindness was a sadness that never completely disappeared. Sometimes I would see her sitting alone on her porch late at night, staring at old photographs. Sometimes I noticed that she would quickly wipe her eyes whenever someone approached. That I never asked questions. Everyone carries invisible wounds. Then came the night everything changed. It was a cold evening in November. The sky was covered with dark clouds, and the wind was strong enough to shake the trees outside my window. I was halfway through making dinner when someone knocked on my door. When I opened it, I saw Seraphina standing there wearing a worried expression. She apologized for bothering me and explained that the lights in her house had suddenly gone out. She said she thought the problem might be with the fuse box in the basement, but she was afraid to go down there alone. I grabbed my flashlight and followed her next door. At the time, it felt like an ordinary moment. A neighbor helping another neighbor. Nothing more. Her house was quiet as we walked inside. The power outage had made the rooms feel strangely different. The beautiful old furniture, the framed pictures on the walls, and the shadows from the candles created an atmosphere that felt almost like stepping into another world. She guided me toward the basement door. I remember laughing and telling her I had dealt with enough old electrical problems in my own house to know how unpredictable they could be. She smiled, but it was a nervous smile. I walked downstairs. The basement smelled like old wood and dust. I reached the fuse box and opened the panel. The flashlight beam moved across the switches as I checked for anything unusual. Then I heard the door close above me. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Then I heard the lock. My entire body froze. Seraphina? I called out. No answer. I climbed the stairs quickly and tried the handle. locked. A strange feeling moved through me. It wasn't anger at first. It was confusion. Why would she lock me inside? I knocked on the door. Seraphina, can you hear me? For several seconds, there was nothing, then I heard her voice from the other side, and that was when I realized this wasn't about the fuse box. She sounded scared. She told me she was sorry. She said she didn't know any other way to do what she needed to do. That I asked her to open the door, but she didn't. Instead, she told me something that changed everything. She said there was something in that basement I needed to see. That I looked around the room, confused. The basement suddenly felt smaller. The walls felt closer. Then I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A small wooden box sitting beneath an old shelf. That I walked toward it. Inside were dozens of letters, hundreds of them, each one carefully organized, each one addressed to someone named Adrian Vale, Seraphina's husband. That I knew she had been married once, but I never knew details. I never asked because I respected her privacy, but standing there, trapped in her basement, I began to understand that she had carried something heavy for a very long time. That I opened one of the letters. That I shouldn't have, but something inside me told me that was exactly what she wanted. The letter was written years earlier. It spoke about regret, mistakes, forgiveness, and a promise to return home. As I read more, I discovered the truth. Adrian had disappeared, not because he died, not because he abandoned her, but because he had been hiding a terrible secret. Years earlier, he had made financial mistakes that put their family in danger. Instead of facing the consequences, he ran away. Seraphina spent years believing she wasn't enough to make him stay. She blamed herself, she carried that pain alone, but there was more. Hidden among the letters was a photograph. It showed Adrian standing beside a young man I didn't recognize. On the back of the picture were 4 words, "Find him. He deserves the truth." I heard footsteps upstairs. Seraphina finally opened the door. When I walked upstairs, I expected an explanation. I expected anger or embarrassment. Instead, I saw a woman who looked completely broken. She apologized. She said she locked the door because she knew that if she simply asked me to listen, she would lose her courage. She told me she had spent years searching for Adrian's son from a previous relationship, a son who had never known why his father disappeared. She had recently found him, but she was afraid to meet him. She was afraid he would hate her. That night, I realized something important. Seraphina hadn't trapped me because she wanted to hurt me. She trapped me because she was desperate for someone to hear a story she had been carrying alone for decades. I sat with her for hours. I listened, and for the first time since losing Marissa, I felt like I was doing something meaningful again. The next few weeks changed both of our lives. I helped Seraphina prepare to meet Adrian's son. His name was Evander. He lived only an hour away. She had spent months writing letters she was too afraid to send. Together, we found the courage to deliver one. When Evander finally agreed to meet her, Seraphina was terrified. She almost cancelled. She stood outside the restaurant trembling, convinced that the past would destroy everything. But when Evander walked through the door, something unexpected happened. He didn't walk away. He didn't yell. He simply looked at her and cried, because he had spent his entire life believing his father left because he didn't care. And now, for the first time, he knew the truth. He learned that his father had made mistakes, but there had been people who loved him. He learned that someone had been searching for him, and Seraphina learned that forgiveness sometimes begins with simply showing up. Months passed after that night. The woman who once sat alone on her porch began laughing again. The house next door no longer felt empty. There were family dinners, conversations, and moments that filled the rooms with life. And strangely enough, I changed too. I started opening my own door again. I started talking to people. I started believing that losing someone doesn't mean your story ends. Sometimes the people who enter your life unexpectedly are the ones who remind you that your heart is still alive. Looking back, I often think about that night when Seraphina asked me to check her fuse box. I thought I was going there to fix a broken electrical problem, but the truth was, I was there to help someone find the light they had lost inside themselves, and maybe that was the real repair that needed to happen. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that everyone around us may be fighting battles we cannot see, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Dream Discipline. Your support helps these emotional stories reach people who may need a little hope today. Before the ending, I have one special request. Write "kindness still matters" in the comments if you believe a small act of compassion can completely change someone's life, because sometimes, the person asking for help isn't just asking you to fix their problem. Sometimes, they are asking you to remind them that they are not alone, and sometimes, The door that unexpectedly closes behind you is not a sign that you are trapped. Sometimes, it is the beginning of finding something you never knew you were searching for.